I appreciated that. I really do, even if it was meant falsely to throw me off track. See, the one big flaw that I think people are missing with you guys is that when you look at the patterns and you had the ability to see through the looking glass and you understand some things that very likely are going to come to someone who you very likely expect would never know those things. I begin to see that what's happening here is that we have a group of individuals who stay silent, who are literally and kind of genetically feeling an advantage as if they know something, as like we do from our parents or anyone who's older than us, that they have somehow or another figured out the mystery of what people call God. And that this genetic change in them, which would come along correctly in the timeline of the way things go, has literally, but not in a sinister way, not like people say it evil. In other words, as if, they were always knowing of this, just we aren't, that they are God. And may even have the abilities to know things like God. And it's funny because this echoes with a lot of other, present things that have been said. I always refer to things like the biblical texts and the Quran. I listen to right-wing evangelists, and when you do, you'll start seeing all these similarities, and you'll start noticing, wow, they were right on this, they were right on that. It's like people get mad at me for listening to Farrakhan. It doesn't matter who he is. I'm sorry, but the guy's gotten too many things right that I'm not going to not listen to him. You got to give credit where credit is due. This isn't it's not politically correct, and on and on and on. And people don't want to hear the answers to that. They are so hell bent on being positive on their ways that I wonder, there are people in the blind spot when you drive in your car. And you ever notice when you don't look over your shoulder, that's always the time that you end up hitting some car because it happened to be in your blind spot. Of all the locations in your rearview mirror, in your side view mirrors, this car happens to be in your blind spot. This is a blind spot. They have this this concept out there, and it's also part of the Dark Awakening, as they're calling it, where you have trauma-based split personalities out there, and that this is actually being diagnosed in hospitals, and they're saying it's this is going totally in contradiction to medical science, which is going to go contradictory to what people think. Everyone, even religious people, think. In fact, this is happening as we speak, and I'm just a voice of it, where people are finally realizing that the science may be telling you that this coronavirus is this and is that. People are realizing no, and now Trump comes out and goes, I think people need to go to church. I would agree with that. I think there's something that you're unable to see that's going on here. Because, for example, the concept of like the super soldiers and that NASA or somehow, or the Nazis genetically had set up a set of circumstances that at some point you would have a generation that was going to come forward, the chosen ones or whatever they call it, which sounds so sci-fi and so far-fetched. And yet we're seeing this happen all around us. They're brilliant liars. I mean, look at the Vegas shooting. No one's gone back to look at that. Oh, it's a conspiracy theory. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. If it looks crazy, if it looks nuts, that's where the answer is going to be. It's going to be hidden in plain view where they know that that's the only way you're ever going to get ahead if you think you're being tricked in life by whatever it may be, by the man or by the devil or by whoever. The only way you're going to win is to outknow them. And one of the best ways of outknowing them is that they don't care or don't care to look into these things. Nikola Tesla comes to mind. It's very suspicious about how Tesla just sort of fades away. And I would think Tesla would be literally overturning in his grave, because now we know somehow or another his patents end up in some office, some civilian gets them, and they end up in the hands of DARPA and the CIA, and the death ray ends up being what HARP is, and all these things. And yet I don't think any of them realize not only that Tesla had these ideas, but Tesla's going, wait a second, you guys are fucking up. Do you know who? This was my idea. This idea was given to me by someone else. I mean, Tesla, one of the ways he got his job was he asked for a job and they didn't want to give him one. and they gave him a some sort of very complicated, unsolvable answer. This is one of the ways he figured out AC and DC power, which they say is what pushed him aside, because all these telephone poles, that were making money for like the current PG&E Edison of the day, that his idea would have basically bankrupted them and not made them money. So they had to get rid of him, which I'm sure is something true to that. But the problem with that is they then took his other ideas. And what they do is they think, well, this is a great idea. Let's take this. In fact, better yet, let's take this idea and give it to someone we know, so that person doesn't have the moral obligation of knowing this idea got stolen from somebody. So they're thinking, well, what a great idea. It's so solid in its idea that they go with it. And then the guy who invented it goes, you don't quite understand. I invented this. No, you didn't. Yes, I did. And I'm sitting here watching and knowing that the players in this game got it wrong. And then you realize why you get silenced and stuff like that. It's very weird. And I can understand why they think that they're right. They don't have any evidence. They don't have any proof. And neither do I, except one. What? How does he know these things? How did he get it? How did he come across this? He didn't stumble across this by accident. And he's trying to tell us a story that something happened. Someone came, I don't know, drugged people, and next thing you know, you wake up, and Steve isn't Steve anymore. This guy Bob claims he's Steve. And Steve's like, what are you talking about? I'm Steve. And no one's paying attention to Steve anymore. It's like they've taken a person's identity and they put it on someone else. It's like the whole Freeway Ricky Ross thing. Freeway Rick Ross, if you lived in L.A., white or black, you know who he was. He was the main guy the CIA sent crack to. Now, he was supposed to be in prison for the rest of his life because it was obvious he was guilty, because the CIA was using him to sell crack. And he was a very fascinating guy because he was going to go on a scholarship to play tennis in college. He was a brilliant guy. And he really set forth some of these rules about like how to do dealing right. They never even busted the guy with cocaine. It was just that they knew he worked for the CIA. So it was like admitting guilt because, well, we know what they did. And we know that you're the guy who did it. So we were going to put you in prison for a charge, even though we have no evidence of it. And then when the whole thing came down and that got exposed about what was going on, and I knew about this living in LA. I mean, it's way deeper than that. They used to leave AK-47 stacked in U-Haul trucks, man, unlocked in the ghetto. That's you know what I'm saying? Like, there's so much more going on here than just getting money from cocaine per, there's weird things going on out there. And a lot of people don't believe in that. And maybe they shouldn't. One of the devil's best defense is don't scare them. There's no need for them to know this. And I'm sure that that's part of it. And I agree with that. That's the position I have been in repeatedly. It's given me PTSD, but it's also given me moments of clarity where I'm like, holy shit, dude. I mean, I already know what's going to go down here, and these people don't know it. They think they're in the right. And they think that I'm just some idiot who thinks he knows it all or something like that. And no one investigates one or the other. No one checks out these things. And I've had that happen repeatedly in my life. That's a Generation X thing. You got to keep in mind. You got to keep something in mind here. People are waiting for something or someone to return. Okay? The one thing that you never see mentioned anywhere is probably one of the greatest and the most amazing things that's happened on this planet. And that's, I'm sure that at some point you do understand that can't we all just get along was a theory that seems so old school, but we found out it would never work. No, it is working. It is working. Sociologists know this. The world knows this. That in America, for the first time on the planet since we've known it, you have a generation, and this is funny because the equal generations are in other countries at the same time. No two generations have ever come out at the same time that seem to have the same characteristics, where every single race, religion, culture, skin color, all those things are getting along to an very acceptable level and sharing and being diverse. Now, are there problems? No more than there would be in a regular family. That has never successfully happened. In other words, the science experiment of this planet has succeeded. Can all of them get along in one group at the same age, in the same place, in the same country, in the same rules? Yes, this happened. With who? Gen X. Oh, we don't talk about them. The country, historically, is going to be on our watch. Right now, it's on our watch. We don't get into politics. Why? Because we say our vote doesn't count, and we're right. We have been right. So look who sneaks in. Someone who's anti our generation. Does everything the opposite of our generation, and has the nerve to date a girl from Russia who is a Generation Xer. She's born in 1970. And yet he does everything, you have to admit, in a bizarre, almost like design nature that is opposite to us. And people even say, my dad said, well, it's your guys' fault you don't get politically active. Yeah, but we're not politically active because we think it's corrupt and fake. In a sense, we're proving that that's correct. But look at Bernie Sanders. Look at that. Okay, we have this whole coronavirus thing going on. You don't know anyone who's sick or died from it. They're talking about the first responders should get rewards. They're not talking about any of the victims. There's no parade for victims. There's no flowers everywhere. Who are these people? And then you combine that with, you guys do know about, why they put digital TV in so that you get confused and stuff like that. And you start realizing, holy shit, this can't be possible. This is amazing. And then you'll say, you know what, man, this virus doesn't even exist. The first day I went out, I couldn't believe all you people went home and locked your doors. I mean, if there's a hurricane, people don't even do that. There's mandatory evacuations, but people aren't leaving. And you hear that there's a flu. That's what it is. It's the flu. The death rate is the same. Everything's the same. Oh, it travels a longer distance and this and that. Okay, there's something called a HEPA filter that can kill those things. The coronavirus is a common virus. The cold is a coronavirus. On the back of a Lysol can, it says, so I'm not, this is a super modified version of it. Is it that severely, that modified, that compared to last year, where we had the same amount of deaths, you know that, right? 60,000 people died last year from the common flu. Not the common flu, but the flu, influenza. That's the same amount we have right now, and people are literally thinking it's the end of the world. Because last year they didn't cover the flu or give it a name like the coronavirus. There's something going on here. And then the government's giving us cash money like that. How did you write up a plan in 2 days? You got a 50,000. What's going on here? I mean, then you take the money and you don't think about it. I'm like, wait. Don't you see what's going on here? And there's people who know exactly what I'm talking about. They want me to shut the fuck up. But what I'm saying is this. Why? Well, because, what do you think? Is that you're God or something like that? Or there is a God? Oh, I know there is one. No, there's not. No, but someone didn't want you to know that. Someone knows that there is evidence. I mean, I see it. I saw it in the fires. How are people able to get oxygen? How is oxygen being fed into those fires where they're driving through with a camcorder? Okay, if it's CGI and fake on all the news, I can understand that. That's probably why they came up with the idea of fake news on the same day. They can track those things, That's not a word that people came up with at the water cooler at work. Like some words, slang, that comes from the street. It takes a while to progress. The very first day you hear about this virus, you heard about social distancing. Man, I'll tell you, military motherfuckers sat around a table thinking of a good name, just like conspiracy theorists. Linguistics experts have determined, and they were right because they investigated it. That's not a normal word that people would come up with talking in society. It doesn't make any sense. There's no such thing as a conspiracy theorist. But it's a sounding good term. Right, it's a sounding good term that you can put on someone and label them as someone. It's higher intelligence. It's crafted. It's witchcraft. There's many words like that. Even the negative words towards races. There's a power behind the spiritually charged power behind those words. The N word, I don't say it. The F word for homosexuals. Those words aren't commonly, you're thinking, oh, well, now it's been attached to something evil. No, when you hear the word, you're like, I don't know what that is, but it just doesn't sound good. They do that on purpose. Something's making that and injecting it into our language. An outside element is injecting that into our language. And an outside element has got some people out there thinking that they're going to make the master race, apparently. And the funny thing about it is, that wasn't even their idea. They got that idea from somewhere else. What did the brother say on The Spirit of Truth? She says, you think you're God. And he goes, fuck you, bitch. Your thoughts ain't my thoughts. Exactly. Your thoughts ain't my thoughts. He knew. The older people have thoughts. You guys think they are your thoughts. They're not. They're not. So we get that. We're not going to cash in on those because we know that that's not morally right. You guys think it's your idea. You guys think you came up with the idea. Now, if someone calls you out on that and can prove, hey, I thought of this idea before you did. Well, how can you say we stole your idea? We don't know you. I'm saying I don't know telepathically or something. You guys got skills like that, right? You're supposedly super assassins. Who do you think you're crafted after? Who do you think the prototype individual was? Because there had to be. If there's a God, it meant that God came up with an idea, and then what happens is you see it duplicated down here. Everything that gets invented down here is coming to us from a flow of ideas that come from some sort of being or computer or creature or something like that. And some people make money on it. I mean, Star Wars, what a great story. That's probably some god seeking about or seeing some future event that trickles down to George Lucas, who goes, I've got a great idea. Well, yeah, I don't give all the credit to myself. I'm not coming up with some of these ideas that are too smart. I don't come up with all the answers. When I get it right, I go, thanks, God. Because I didn't know that answer. How I got it right was more than just luck. So how do you think that these super soldiers were crafted? I'll tell you what, they're the opposite of what the Bible says is the archangels. And they're more negative. They don't have conscience. Remember, they said they're going to make them without apathy or empathy so that they don't care. They have no conscience. And in the Vegas shooting, if you go back and look, those people, they really think they got shot. They were right. Those were fireworks. Go back and look at it now. They don't want you to do that. If you look at it now, it's one of the closest things that's happened in history where, as of right now, no one's looking at the fact that that's been debunked. And yet you look at the interviews, and why all these Valley Girl millennials are with cowboys, I don't know. That's very suspicious to me. But all of them are telling stories that none of them make sense. None of them make sense. And then they start uncovering all these other things that you're tired of the story, you want to move it on, and I'm just a conspiracy theorist. But if you do take that time and lift that weight in the gym of the mind a little bit more, you start realizing, holy shit, he's right. They never concluded this case. All the things they said, the guy did not have bump stocks. Wait, a police officer, a gun accidentally went off in the thing. Who is this woman that he sent $1 million to? Why did he? This is impossible. That's inconvenient for you to know, like Al Gore's book, Inconvenient Truth. But that is the ultimate truth right there. You start realizing at that point that something has set you up and set me up to go against each other. Now, maybe that's what forms duality in the universe, and you can't ruin that. Then I don't want to ruin that. But it's very bizarre to sit here and see other people. It's like, I mean, we've all had that thing where it's like we thought of an idea and we never shared it with anybody, and all of a sudden we see someone do or invent that exact idea, take it to the bank. That's happened throughout history. But some of these ideas aren't getting shared. How are these people getting these ideas and then going to the bank to use them? They're harvesting them from somebody. I'm telling you. And I even know a couple that are doing the same thing. And I really don't even care. But the funny thing is, they're living my idea, and they're living it wrong. The plan's not going to work out right, and then they're going to get mad. They're not going to understand what went wrong. Why are things going so bad? Well, I told you, the recipe is wrong. Oh, you didn't. What recipe? You don't know anything about this. Yes, I did. Something's made you forget that this was my idea. In fact, that's what scared you off. You didn't like it. You thought it was like I was going to force it upon you. It was just an idea. I wanted to know what it meant. Next thing you know, you disappear, and I see you show back up. And what do you know? There's somebody like with my same name, my same history, everything about me, acting exactly like me. Freeway Ricky Ross got let out of jail. And there is a hip-hop singer, Rick Ross. He's even been on the talk shows. He was a jail warden who stole the ID of the Freeway Ricky Ross because they assumed he'd always be in prison. So he's now telling people he was the crack dealer. People think he's the original Rick Ross. So he's talking about, yeah, man, I'm from the street, I made it up. I mean, he's being sincere. He's trying to tell kids how to live life right. And the real Freeway Ricky Ross, who got let out of prison because the CIA thing broke, that they set him up, it wasn't all his fault. He can't get his name back. Universal Studios says, you're fucking up us making our money. We don't care if you are the real guy. There's nothing you can do about it. We stole your ID. We dare you to try to get it back. And the amazing thing is, people know that and still don't care. They're like, oh, we don't care. He could be imitating another guy. We don't care about the other guy. So they don't want the real. Isn't that weird that we have this reality thing going with our generation? They remake every movie, including Star Wars. They can't make anything of their own. And I know we're supposed to take the fall, but it's like at some point you guys got to say something, right? Especially when it's in your face. I mean, the only honest thing about it is like, well, I guess if I looked different, she would have liked me and would have wanted to go out with me because that guy is me. That's a bold thing to say, but that's happening all across the board. I mean, they take our ideas all the time. You Napster, yeah, you're going to go to prison. And now everyone uses file sharing. Graffiti, you punks, you think that's art? This is art. Bank at Safeway or Bank of America. Buy Alexa for allergies. That's what we want up there. Your idea of art sucks. Self-expression, we don't need any of that down here. And you start realizing, well, I guess this is not heaven. But there's got to be something built into you that doesn't let you know that. But I will tell you this much. The reason I know those things is because I know exactly who the prototype is that they don't even know that they did. I know exactly who the person is who, well, if we can ultimately computerize or technologize his thoughts, or if we can make a better body out of him, or if he could be stronger and more muscular, then we'd have a perfect example. So let's derive it off of this guy, but don't let him know that basically we're stealing his identity and improving it, and they're going to sell it to the person that, you know, he wanted, but fuck him, he's not worth it. I mean, you can't even admit that, because our generation, we're so classy that we'll say, you know what, just admit it to me. But if you don't know it, then I'm just here to tell you that. They're selling you on other people's identities. They're selling you on Gen X identity. And why would they do that? Because that's the body of Christ, fool. They got every generation in them. That's my point. It was a success story. There's no other generation ever that has dealt so well with other races. And how are they not going to say a word